Hello, welcome to the September provider meeting. Thanks everyone who's joining us online. I am going to kick it off with a couple of announcements on new staff here at Ddsn. We have a new Chief Financial Officer, Quincy Swiger, who is joining us here at the table. And Quincy, if you're willing to introduce yourself to our providers, I know they're going to be excited to meet you.
Hey, my name is Quincy Swigert. I come from Health and Human Services, where I was the Bureau Chief of Planning and Budget and managed the state's $8.3 billion Medicaid program budget, along with $600 million administrative budget. Excited to be here. I know I got a lot of things to learn, but I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you guys in the future.
We are so glad to have you on the team, Quincy. And also, Ddsn has a new Autism Division Director, Stephanie Turner. And Stephanie, would you be willing to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Stephanie Turner. I am the Autism Program Manager here. Previously, I was the Senior Director of Behavioral Health and Community-Based Services at Epworth Children's Home. And before that, I was the Behavioral Health Policy Program Manager at Dhhs. I recognize Margaret.
Thank you. We are so glad to have you both. Quincy and Stephanie started last Monday, so we're so happy to have them here at Ddsn. And then we'll go around the room and introduce who else is here at Central Office.
Hi, I'm Lori Manus, Associate State Director for Policy.
Ann Dalton, Director of Quality Management.
Harley Davis, Chief Administrative Officer.
PJ Perea, Communications Director.
Nancy Rumbaugh, Budget Director.
So that's everyone here at Central Office. Thank you again for joining. We are going to just go ahead and start to move through the agenda. And first, we have HHS updates with Margaret Alewine at HHS.
Great, thank you so much. Let me see if everyone can hear me. Can you all hear me?
Margaret, we can't hear you. I don't know if you can hear us.
I can hear you.
We can't hear you.
Okay.
Can you guys, outside of Ddsn?
Yeah.
Okay, we can hear you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay,
We're good now, Margaret.
We're good? All right. Great, thank you. Just a couple of updates today. I did want to provide an update on the American Rescue Plan Act spending. This is enhanced funding that is dedicated toward improving and enhancing home and community-based services. So we have been working hard on one of the key pieces of our funding plan for the ARPA funds. That is a one-time payment focused on staff retention. I do want to thank, we have had several providers from the Ddsn community participate in a provider work group to help inform our approach and our methodology. This is a complex endeavor. We've got many providers across the HCBS space that we needed to take into account, as well as looking at what is going to provide the best incentives for you all to help with your efforts to retain staff. We have updated our fiscal modeling. We will be outreaching to that provider work group for one additional call to go over our final information. What we anticipate doing is utilizing a multi-year approach of looking at the utilization or delivery of services. Our fiscal staff has pulled data from 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022 to look across the spectrum of providers, what that utilization looks like, to thereafter identify a percentage of what we have set aside for this particular activity within our spending plan. We anticipate that we will have an application process. So we want to ensure that providers have choice and can apply for this additional funding. We want to make sure that is as streamlined as possible. So we want to reduce administrative burden, but do want providers to have the option to apply for the funding. So there will be a streamlined application process. We anticipate that for this particular piece of funding, we had allocated to this in our original spending plan approximately $30 million of the overall spending plan. So we know that in our initial discussions with our partners at Ddsn, it was felt that no less than 7 million of that should be allocated to the Ddsn provider network. So we have modeled those scenarios based on no less than 7 million being the total across the Ddsn provider space. Once we run the final numbers and identify what the application rate is across all of our providers, that may adjust the amount, but it will be no less than that. And then we will thereafter issue a one-time payment through that methodology. So I'm just speaking at a very high level. We're still finalizing those numbers, but that is our overall approach based on input from the work group that we anticipate. So we are hoping to begin pushing out information on that application process in the upcoming weeks. We still have some final work to do on the methodology and the totals. And so I have one question. I'll come right back around to you, Ralph. So we do anticipate putting that information out, hopefully, again, one more meeting with that provider work group. They have really helped us to ensure we're looking at things in a way that are going to be helpful and help incentivize the folks that have worked throughout the public health emergency and continue to do so in service of our members. So that original total, the question was if that includes the regional centers and central office. What that will include is those services that are being delivered directly for waiver participants. So it is only the HCBS waiver services. It would not include ICFs because that is not considered an HCBS waiver service, and any provider services that are delivered under the HCBS waivers. We also are going to be issuing a set of bulletins. So we are going to be putting out just a kind of a wrap-up summary bulletin of the recently approved waiver amendment for the HASKI waiver, and then also the community supports renewal. We want to make sure that we are outlining what changes and what updates occurred with those two waiver actions. Many of those were to incorporate formally those changes that we had put in association with the IDRD waiver renewal to cascade those changes through all of those waivers. So these are the formal actions CMS approved for those two waivers. So that will be a bulletin that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. We are also working our way through guidance and information across all of the services as it pertains to flexibilities that have been in place throughout the public health emergency. Under the Appendix K flexibilities, there is a time frame identified for HCBS for certain flexibilities to remain in place for a certain period of time. But we want to make sure that we are communicating our intentions in terms of the flexibilities as it relates to the end of the public health emergency. So we will be putting together, and you will see bulletins on a range of topics across all of our services as it relates to the public health emergency. And finally, I see that Jeff Saxon is listening in this afternoon. We are going to also be issuing communication by bulletin on the updates to rates as it relates to the 3% increase for cost of living. That will pertain to waiver services, and there will also be a bulletin and public notice on the update to ICF rates as it relates to that 3% increase and staff bonuses. Jeff, I'm not sure if you care to come off mute or add anything to that, but wanted to let the group know that formal communication by way of bulletins will be coming. Those changes will be retroactive to July 1st, but we will put in an adjustment to the rates and thereafter address any previous billings that need to be adjusted. I didn't say that in a highly technical way, but I'll stop and see if Jeff is able to add to that. But if not, just know that formal communication with bulletins will be forthcoming for that rate adjustment. Okay. Hearing none, I do have an additional question that has come in about the American Rescue Plan Act. So what we did in crafting our initial and updated spending plans was to put the anticipated amount of funding into essentially 3 categories. The first of those focused on staff recruitment, staff retention, and support of rate increases. So that accounts for that total that I mentioned in the ARPA funds. That's just the piece that is focused on staff retention efforts. There are additional activities identified within the spending plan. It can be located on our HHS website. CMS also publishes the updates to state spending plans on their websites. So I'll be glad to send links out to those locations where you can view both the spending plan and updates to that. I should add within that first category, we include not only one-time payments focused on staff retention, but we also include in that how we are addressing payment for the rate increases that have already been put into place. And that is in recognition that we needed some immediate actions. At a certain point, we do have to, because this is non-recurring funding, seek additional budget requests to support those rates on an ongoing manner. But we felt it very important to allocate and utilize part of this funding toward those rate increases in the short term. Also have another question related to the increase for early intervention. Those will also reflect an increase. I can't give those specific rate citations, but they will also be in the notice and bulletin that come out with the specific rates for that. All right, I see no other open questions right now. So with that, I will turn it back over to the folks in the conference room. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, so thank you, Margaret. The pause was us determining if our speakers are working. It looks like they are, so yay. Really quickly on new initiatives, we spent a lot of time last month talking through initiatives we had taken to the commission for our fiscal year 23 spending plan. I want to communicate and share that we did submit budget to our EBO filing on Friday, and just want to highlight that our budget requests sought to expand the youth intensive rehabilitation. And we also asked for monies that would allow us to expand the crisis stabilization in the same model that we brought to the commission in August, in which it would be at a regional center with hopefully a community-based collaborator, and that would allow us to do it in 2 other parts of the state. And finally, I want to highlight that we asked for 8 positions in eligibility that would be able to administer the ADOS. We recognize that there is a need for an increase in autism evaluations, and we also recognize that the ADOS is a gold standard. I will note that we are working hard currently to identify ways in which we can address the backlog, and we've had a number of meetings with folks who we might be able to contract with to start looking at that. Finally, in terms of new initiatives, I want to acknowledge that we, the executive leadership team at DDSN, acknowledge the need to establish a standing advisory committee focused on supported persons. We're working on that, and we will communicate details regarding requests for appointments as we get further along. But I do want to acknowledge that we want to do that.
Yeah, there's just a clarification about the budget. It's for fiscal year 24.
Yeah. So just, we don't know what will happen, but just want to share sort of where we are from a policy perspective. And we shared that with our commission in the finance meeting earlier this month in September. I'm having a hard time remembering what month we're in because time flies so quickly. So it's consistent with what we talked about. If you were a person who tuned in to the finance meeting in September, just want to say that we did get that submitted. Consistent with that, we filed those on Friday for fiscal year 24. The fiscal year 23 detailed spending plan we took to the commission in August.
So someone wanted to know if you could repeat the advisory committee information. They missed part of it.
Oh,
So
really just a highlight to acknowledge we were just talking this morning. We want to set up a standing advisory committee for supported persons, their families. We're working through the cadence, and as we get through that, we will reach out for appointments from appropriate parties.
and then there was one other question about bonuses. Margaret, did you want to answer that?
Yes, Jeff is having some difficulty with his audio, but did indicate that the bonuses will be paid by a gross adjustment process.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
And I think that's everything, so you can go to the next item on the agenda.
Great. So as everyone on this call likely knows, in July, at least we hope you know, DDSN updated our audit directive to restore the deadlines to pre-COVID dates, pre-public health emergency dates. We've heard from some provider boards that this was not enough time, not enough notice to comply. And I kind of want to we talked about this last month, but I just want to reiterate the reason that we have been pretty steadfast on that September 30th deadline is that we need to get our cost report to HHS in December on time, so that HHS has the information they need to evaluate potential rate increases. So absolutely in everyone's interest for us to get the cost report in on time. At the same time, I regret that we did not get the policy directive out earlier. So we will be sending out an executive memo authored by Quincy later today to just say, while we can't change the deadline in the policy directive, if providers can get those to DDSN no later than October 15th, we will not be issuing fines. Hopefully this is an act of good faith to show that we're kind of splitting the difference. And there's a lot of, I want to express there's a lot of work that happens at Ddsn once we receive cost reports, because sometimes there are corrections. So it's not as though we have starting October 16th at 12:01 a.m. time to start working with those. There's often a lot of back and forth to get those compliant so that we can do ours. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Quincy, who can highlight some of the highest areas of change that are needed, hopefully to help people avoid these areas where we have to send them back.
So it's a week into my new position here, but I did get a chance to talk to staff, and they had some concerns with 4 items that we historically have seen. The first one is the net pension liabilities adjustment. In 21 and 22 cost reports, they did not make the adjustment. So the net pension liabilities are not allowable in the cost report. So we would either have to make the adjustment or send it back to the board so they can make the correction, just depending on what the size of the error is. Also, health insurance costs for retirees. This cost is not allowable. So those 2 adjustments took us the most time. Another area I would say is the revenue offset. Say the board receives like $50,000 in interest revenue. That revenue needs to be split or allocated across all the programs, day programs, administration, CTH2, all those things. But it's instead of just one program. So we sometimes have to send it back for that. The next thing, I think a lot of the boards got grants to purchase vehicles. So the board can only claim depreciation on the funds that they use, not the grant funds. So those needed to be split out. So we would have to make adjustments for those as well. So we have to dive into these things, it looks like, and make a lot of these adjustments, and it takes time and a lot of back and forth. If some of these things can come in without these errors, we can probably, cut down that timeline to get these things to HHS on time. But we just need, we need the time to go through them as well. So we can't just pass on an inflated cost report to HHS because it does impact rates.
I have 3 questions. The first one is this person's working on their reports. They have a couple of questions. They're not sure who to direct the questions to. So do they come in here, and if they're HHS questions, you ask HHS, or how does that work?
They can send it to me, and then if I need to reach out to Jeff Saxon, I can do that, or if I need to direct them to our internal staff, I'll do that as well.
Okay. So you can send those to Quincy, and I will put his email in the chat as soon as I get a break from the questions so that you guys have it. When do you expect that you will have room and board approvals back to the providers?
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, well, we don't know, but we'll let you know as soon as Quincy's able to look into it. The last one is, this is cost reports and audit as well as ROAP, or is this just cost report?
This is just cost report. ROAP, I think, has got a later due date.
Yeah,
I thought Courtney's not in here.
but I believe, I'll have to look, but I believe we've already extended the ROAP deadline to the end of October. I'm getting nods, so yes. And the other one is also at the end of October. Haven't we extended?
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head either, so I might thought.
So they're saying that they haven't seen that we've extended those deadlines. When we issue the executive memo that includes this information, we'll make sure that we address all of those things. So Courtney says the ROAP is increased to 1031 if requested. So we didn't just kind of give a blanket. We just said you can request for it to be. Okay, so the executive memo is not out yet, but we're going to work on that to try to get it out.
It'll be out by today.
Quincy said you'll see it tomorrow. We'll try to be a little, a little more clear in that. I think that's it for now. So the next item on the agenda is me. The residential leave report, I apologize. Normally I get it out to you around the 20th, 25th. I'm running a little bit late this month, but I will get it to you by the end of the week. I think somebody emailed me and really needed a piece of crucial data from it. If you have a situation at your agency where you need to know something really quickly, if you'll just send me an email, I'll respond about that person. But otherwise, just plan on getting it by the end of the week. And when I run it, it's not run based on a month. It's run up to the date that I run the report. So like when I run it today or tomorrow, it'll be accurate as of that date. The next item on the agenda is around ISP billing and TheraP. ISP billing and TheraP is still a little bit delayed. There's a lot of reasons for it, but it has to do with some of the challenges in the system related to overlapping authorizations and how the billing system works. The other thing that we kind of decided to do was to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the system the way that it is now before we add another very complicated piece of billing to the system. I had asked TheraP to do a series of trainings. We were getting lots and lots of questions about case note billing. So they did a series of Monday afternoon webinars related to case note billing. The last one is going on right now at 2 o'clock today. If you are a provider using the TheraP billing system and you feel like you need additional training on a certain aspect of the system, or you feel like you don't understand a certain aspect of the system, or if you feel like you don't have the reporting that you need, if you will please reach out to me, I can have TheraP, do some additional webinars for you. So please just let me know if there are items that you would like to hear from them about. Janet, I think you are up.
Okay, so just an update on the ITAC, which is the Interdisciplinary Technical Advisory Committee. This is something that Ddsn stood up so that we could get some technical assistance from professionals. We have internal medicine, we have a psychiatrist, we have a policy case management expert, and we have a behavior support expert, all who participate, and they review information about people with whom we're struggling to identify the appropriate supports. They also provide information or guidance to us around certain policies or certain procedures. So we stood the ITAC up and started with the ITAC in mid-August, and so far there have been enough people that were on Ddsn's radar, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it, people that we already knew we were struggling to find the appropriate supports. So so far the individuals whose case or information about them has been shared with the ITAC have been those people that we already knew. We were already aware of their situation. We've also had them look at a couple of other kinds of policy issues and gotten their advice on that. So we anticipate that we will be able to get some information out about a process to identify others who may need to go to the ITAC, and we're hoping to get something out about that within the next month or two. So the next item is also me, and that is the new residential needs policy, which is 700-09-DD. This policy was approved by the commission recently, and we have tentatively scheduled some dates for training. The first session is tentatively scheduled for November 10th. And that session will be at 10 in the morning. And then a second session tentatively scheduled for November 15th. And that session will be at 1:30 in the afternoon. It is our intent right now to move forward with training for both case management and residential staff together. We think it'll be good for both to hear. So we'll look forward to doing that. We will record the training and have it available on demand. So that's mine, Ann.
All right. Hello, everybody. I have a few items to discuss today that are actually a repeat from some of the information shared at the June 24th Quality Management meeting and previously in our provider forums back in June and July. But I was talking with some folks last week at the Executive Leadership Academy, and some of this information was not known to that group. So I wanted to repeat it. It's very important for you guys to be aware. So I'll just hit the highlights now. First, there are DHHS waiver provider reviews that are going on. Currently, there are 35 providers within our system that are they have either completed or they may be in the process of having a DHHS waiver provider review. About 10 to 12 of those providers have received the results and developed a plan of correction for any findings. The others are somewhere in that process, and as soon as we at Ddsn receive the results, we will be passing that along to the provider agencies. We are more or less in the middle of this review process. We facilitate providing the information to the executive directors and their staff, and we filter the information back to the DHHS. But Ddsn is not an active part of this review process, so we're just the middlemen. But if you receive a notice regarding a review, please respond timely. These usually have a pretty short turnaround in terms of the information that you need to send back. The next topic I wanted to cover was the post-payment claims review process. We talked about this again at the quality management meeting back in June and subsequently at provider forums. So this is a process that is in development currently with Ddsn. It is something that is outlined in our home and community-based waivers as part of our performance measures. We have to demonstrate compliance with the financial integrity sections within the waiver, and we are required to establish a post-payment claims review process. We are working out the details currently, but as we have shared before, providers need to ensure that they have adequate policies and procedures in place to validate any service that they are billing for with respect to the waiver. Attendance is not service provision, and we can't stress that enough. Please review your scope of services to ensure that you're capturing the right information and the right frequency for whatever services that you're providing and then billing for. You want to make sure that the person was eligible for services at the time of their claim. The service was authorized in the person's support plan. The units of service align with the service plan, so you're not delivering more than what's in the service plan. And then you want to make sure that you have sufficient documents so that it's very clear the type of service that was provided and that it is within scope. This might include your service notes, any notes about community integration, behavior support data, meetings about the person facilitating their appointments. Just please make sure that you have procedures about how you want staff to document what they're doing. Another hot topic within quality management is the subject of A&E reporting timelines, the compliance and follow-up. I think we cover this at each and every provider forum because it is so important. We have to make sure that our reports are being submitted on time. That's the initial reports and the final reports. Any providers that were below that 86% threshold for timely reporting received a notice, and they are required to do a plan of correction. So those fourth quarter plans of correction are due October 1st. There are some providers that received a notice for the fourth quarter that also received a notice earlier this year. Please make sure you're not sending back the same information. We want to know how you're tailoring your plan to improve your compliance. And I also just wanted to clarify, because this has come back to me a couple times. Providers may think that when their reports are being returned for additional information or clarification that is affecting their late reporting status. That is actually not the case. We are looking at timely reporting based on the first submission of that report from your agency. There are separate plans of correction and a separate process for those providers that may be struggling with regards to the content of their report. So we have two different things going on there. We also have a mortality review process. Again, we've talked about this before, but as a reminder, we do intend to kick off a mortality review process, possibly by the end of October. We will be adding a position within quality management, and that person's role will be reviewing death reports, gathering information that may be needed for SLED or for the Vulnerable Adult Fatality Review Committee. They will be tracking and trending information and working with providers where there may be unexplained, unexpected deaths, and looking at how we can track that information and any recommendations that might be needed regarding training or technical assistance. This is not a position that is directly tied to the Vulnerable Adult Fatality Review Committee, but they will have a lot of interaction. Some of you may have experienced a risk management administrative review. We have talked with you guys before about the fact that the risk management division here at Central Office has staff who are conducting reviews out at the regional centers. They're conducting administrative reviews for all A&Es, some critical incidents, and they are also conducting supplemental reviews at community-based provider agencies in a handful of situations. I think we've had maybe 4 in the fourth quarter and 3 so far in the first quarter for fiscal year 23. But these are reviews that are tied to significant injuries, where we feel like there has been a significant risk to a person or group of people supported by an agency, or sometimes it's just that gut feeling that we feel, perhaps an extra set of eyes or looking at a situation from a different perspective would be helpful. And then we also have also had some questions about the corrective action plans that are required for material deficiencies. Again, this is something that we talked about back in June, and I know we also followed up, I think, in June and July here in the provider forums. We were talking about the notice of material deficiencies. We've had 4 providers in the fourth quarter and 3 in the first quarter of fiscal year 23 that have received a notice of material deficiencies. Out of those, 2 of the 4 were, they have their plans approved, and 2 were required to resubmit their plans. For the most recent material deficiency letters, we've had 1 compliance action plan approved, and there are 2 others that are continuing the process to resubmit their plans. We work very closely, as you know, with the Department of Health and Human Services regarding the operation of the waivers, and whenever we have identified issues that affect the quality of services or policy compliance, that's what we're highlighting in these material deficiency letters. We are looking at trends within an agency, and when it's necessary, we are sending a notification to the executive director and the board of directors for that particular agency. A compliance action plan must be developed, and that has to address each area that's been noted to have a deficiency. We want to know who's, what topics you're going to include for any training, the credentials and experience of the staff who will be providing it, how you'll be amending your policies and procedures to affect change and improve compliance. We do provide an outline of the expectations for a compliance action plan, but we do not provide specific guidance for what an agency needs to do to get there. We recognize that all of our providers operate differently. You have different populations that you support based on the needs of those folks. And so this is truly an individualized approach where the board of directors and the agency's leadership need to come together to develop a plan to achieve compliance. We will provide feedback, but again, we are not going to step in and provide that individualized technical assistance for developing your plan. And that's why we've had some agencies go through a couple of different iterations in trying to have their plan approved. It may be necessary for providers to contract with subject matter experts or to look at other outside resources as they're trying to address their plans. I've had some conversations with staff recently who were unaware, so thank you for those of you who were sitting patiently through that description of some of the things that we've covered before. Again, we operate the waivers on behalf of DHHS, and we want to make sure that we are meeting their expectations. We are partners with DHHS, and they are certainly included and aware of each of these action steps that we're taking. Many of them are tied directly to the Office of Inspector General report and the state's response to that report. So it's very important. All of this is included to feedback that's communicated to CMS on a regular basis. And then for new information that I wanted to share, back on July 21st, CMS issued a letter to state Medicaid directors about the Home and Community-Based Services Quality Measure Set. If you're not familiar, CMS desires to have a uniform set of data that can be used for performance measures across all states and all waiver types. The tools that were specifically mentioned in this HCBS quality measure set include the HCBS Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers, the National Indicator Surveys, and personal outcome measures from the Council on Quality and Leadership. They are also looking at other nationally standardized and tested measures related to access, rebalancing, community integration, health and safety, and person-centered practices. At this time, the HCBS quality measure set is encouraged, but it appears that requirements may be forthcoming. And if you want more information on the HCBS quality measure set, you can simply do a search on that topic, or you can look for SMD number 22-003. That is the communication number from CMS. And again, that is SMD, State Medicaid Directors, number 22-003. And that's all. Thank you.
So there was a question about the amount of information today and just being able to go back and look at it about recording of the meeting. So recordings of these meetings are posted on the DDSN website under providers, monthly provider meetings. There's actually links to each of these meetings, so you can go back and watch them at that time. All right, I think next is upcoming events, so that's PJ.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. In October, we're going to be celebrating Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and the National Down Syndrome Society nationwide will be hosting buddy walks as a way of raising awareness as well as raising funds for the different organizations, the local organizations. In South Carolina, there will be 3 buddy walks that are being held. Two on October 16th at the Grand Strand at Myrtle Beach, at Grant Park and Market Commons at Myrtle Beach, and in Charleston at Elwan Park, both on October 16th. Columbia will be hosting their Buddy Walk at Saluda Shoals Park on November 6th. If you want more information, go to the National Down Syndrome Society. They're encouraging people to come up with teams, bring out the consumers, and just have a great and fun day at these different events. I will be posting everything I'm announcing here on our social media. So if you're not following our social media, I pretty much put everything that's happening and what we're involved with on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So if you kind of miss any of the information, I will be posting these in the upcoming days here. So also in October, we're going to be celebrating Disability Employment Awareness Month. If you have any success stories from any of your consumers that may be finding employment or had a great employer that you maybe want highlighted, contact me. I would love to write about them. I would love to do a feature story on them. It's just those great stories that need to get out and need to be talked about to encourage employers to hire people with disabilities, especially. So I'm always looking for good news stories, success stories. Come find me if you do. You can contact me through the Facebook page or via email or call me. Also happening in October, on October 13th, we are working with the South Carolina State Fair to host a sensory-friendly morning at the State Fair between 9 and noon. If you're unaware of this, they are basically turning down the loud sounds. No big, fair-wide announcements will be done over the loudspeaker, so it's going to be quiet from 9 to 12. The lights will turn down, the speakers will be turned down and off in all the rides. So it will be a very friendly event for people with sensory or people on the spectrum. Now, the admission, it allows for the person with autism free admission, as well as one person, either a parent, guardian, caregiver, or family member, to be let in for free. If you want to plan this a little bit ahead of time, and I know planning is very important, there are 50% off tickets, so you don't want to pay the gate price, you want to pay the $10 ticket. Go to their website and you can get half-price tickets via the website and through local vendors. I believe Circle K is one of them. Also for planning, they just posted a storyboard so you can help plan your day, or at least the morning at the State Fair. So there are showing sensory-friendly activities and places to go, like visiting the animals or viewing an art show for people who are exceptionally sensitive to 2-inch stimuli. So this is just a neat event. It's their first time for them, so they're still kind of working out a lot of the kinks, but based on the response we've gotten, I posted something last Monday. I've had 500,000 people already look and view our posting, and it's been incredibly very positive. So I expect there'll be a good number of people coming for that morning. If you can't make it that morning, on the following week, on October 20th, they are hosting an Exceptional Citizens Day. Same sort of deal, free admission for a person with a lifelong disability plus one other person. And that goes on for the whole day. The only difference is everything will be turned on. The lights, the sounds, it'll be just a regular day at the fair, but you do get free admission. Now the rides are separate, so the admission only includes you getting to the gate. They do have ticket packages for the rides. You'll have to go to the website, or once you get inside, you can see some of the different options for you to buy single rides or a all-day ride packet, however you want to spend your day at the fair. Now, one other event coming up on December 8th, we'll be hosting a holiday market here at Ddsn. You will be hearing from us probably in the first week of October. I'm going to be sending out a registration Google form for people who are interested in serving as a vendor at our event. So if you are interested in, if you have a small business, or if your group would like to do some fundraising, we encourage you to get the Santa's Elves workshop up and running, and bring some of those great products here, because I'm expecting to bring a crowd in here that are ready to buy things for Christmas. So you'll hear a little bit more about that as we get into October with an announcement, as well as a vendor registration form. So finally, especially with Hurricane Ian coming, if you need information about emergency preparedness or any special things you need to do, I'll be reposting some of that information, especially locations of, say, emergency shelters that may be, nothing's open right now, but I am going to repost a lot of information. Again, if you scroll through our Facebook feed, I have lots of information about helping people with disabilities, especially during emergency situations, putting together an emergency kit, some of the different resources that are available. Those are all available at the Ddsn social media pages. And with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I don't have any other questions posted. So I think we're.
Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate having these meetings. We hope it's a positive way to communicate with everyone at once. And we look forward to the same meeting next month. Have a good day.
Thank you.